Welcome to my digital story on augmented reality or AR. I really enjoyed the readings for this week and doing my own research because I know very little about AR or VR. And so being able to look up different types that can be used in a classroom and how they can assist with student learning and engagement and enjoyment was really fascinating to me, and I was really excited to make this presentation. What is AR? AR is where a device is used to do a digital overlay of information into the real world of the user. So, for example, when I was doing some extra research, I found an article about interior design and how they'll use AR. Interior designers will use AR to take, for instance, a living room that they're designing for like an open house for selling the house, and they'll use AR to digitally, in a 3D manner, create what they want the living room to look like and where the furniture should be and how big the furniture should be so that they can visualize it before actually moving the heavy pieces of furniture. So, um, versus VR or virtual realities replace the real world with a digital one. So, um, you're experiencing a whole new world versus experiencing virtual elements in the world that you're living in and standing in. On this slide, I'm going to talk about the examples of AR that can be used in the classroom. I am going to go between looking at the camera and looking at my notes because I took a lot of notes on these resources and I don't want to mix them up. So on Edutopia or Edutopia, the first one that I found was Merge Cube. So Merge Cube, students can actually virtually hold artifacts and objects, and they have content like the water cycle, fossils, rocks, gemstones, simple machines, and they even have object viewer or museum viewer. So it can be used almost as a virtual field trip as well. It is $995 per class per year. CoSpaces EDU, students can create their own experiences in any subject area. They can add audio, they can add code or photos, and CoSpaces can actually be used with MergeCube, and you can even do something like virtual dissections. This is something I wish I knew when I was a sixth grade teacher. We were doing a dissection unit, but I had some more squeamish students, and there was the option of doing a virtual dissection, which I found some great resources, but I think this one would have been really cool for students to experience the dissection without having to actually like touch the preserved animal. Assembler, students can create and explore content like marine life, planets, symmetry, fractions, and PE. I forgot to state that CoSpaces is free for the basic user, and Assembler is also free for the basic level. Quiver masks is where students can create masks to tell a story of a person or an animal. So they can either create their own stories and then use quiver masks to create sort of like avatars, but in a mask form. And they can create that to depict what their characters look like, or they can show their comprehension of reading a story using quiver masks. I couldn't find any info on that one for the pricing though. Narrator AR, I also couldn't find the pricing information, but Narrator AR, students can use interactive letters that come up on the screen that are 3D to practice their handwriting. Wonderscope is $5 per story, and students can actually interact with the story and the story elements. And then Augmented Classroom is a European based one, but it's €1 per user per month. And students can explore plants, animals, and the world around them. They can interact with the content, including geography, weather, geometry, and space. And they can actually use Augmented Classroom to collaborate with students around the world. So students that have a profile in Augmented Classroom can get permission from their teacher to interact with other students that are using it as well. Um, all right, and then AR Dare Solutions. Um, or however you say that. This is the other website that I found good information on. Google Expeditions AR, which is now called Google for Education, overlays digital 3D objects onto the physical environment. So that's how AR works. And students can go on virtual expeditions like going to Mars, or they can even examine DNA and like peel back the different elements of it. Elements 4D is specifically for chemistry, so students can understand abstract chemical symbols using 3D building blocks. Um, you can also students can create their stuff and then create and then print it out and create foldables to do a physical version too. They can also bring two chemical elements together and see what their reaction would be without like actually having those elements in person to practice beforehand. AR flashcards is interactive. They're 3D cards. So essentially, you take a device like an iPad, for instance, and you point it to a flashcard that has a word on it. And the app creates a 3D model of that thing on the screen. So, one of the examples that I read was how to use this with English language learners. So, they have flashcards of different words that they're practicing. And it's best with nouns, but they if they're not sure what that word what it's representing, they could show they could point the device at the card with the word on it, and then that thing will be created in a 3D model on the screen. Jig space, students can deconstruct different like multi-part items or objects. They can disassemble them. Some of the examples were like a car engine. They can peel back the different layers of the car engine and disassemble it and then reassemble it. They can explore cellular mitosis or different physics elements. Mondly AR is a virtual language tutor, so students can create an avatar that has conversations with them, and it can create 3D vocabulary objects. So similar to the AR flashcards where it creates the objects, but the students put the word into the program. And then they get real-time feedback on pronunciation. So they can work with this program and they can work with the 3D elements, but then they can be having a conversation with the avatar, and then the avatar gives them feedback on their pronunciation of the English language. WWF Free Rivers AR is the World Wildlife Foundation, and they have a program for river ecosystems. Students can look at virtual landscapes within their classroom. They can interact with nature, wildlife, and human development. And one of the main things it does is to show how dams impact river flow, how it displaces animals, and then a community and civilization's dependence on water systems. And then the last one, Anatomy 4D, is specific to anatomy. Students can scan an image that they have. So, for example, if they have an image of the heart, then they can scan the image with their device. It creates a 3D image that is multi-layered. So maybe they have like a 2D version, like drawing of a heart, and then this program, Anatomy 4D, creates a 3D image of it that's multi-layered, and students can peel back the layers and examine specific organs or specific parts of an organ in this example. Some of the benefits of using AR in the classroom are increased engagement in content areas, accessibility for all students, and ability to differentiate and scaffold based on student ability levels. Students have the opportunity to collaborate with their students. It's interactive and it's personalized instruction. Some of the limitations though are cost. A lot of these programs are really expensive. The devices are expensive, but then so are the apps that you need to be able to use them. So it can be hard for classrooms to have access to these devices. Technology compatibility. Sometimes the technology isn't compatible, and so you might have a device, but then if your school changes some of your technology in your classroom, the device might not continue to be compatible, and so then you have to buy a whole new thing. sometimes it's hard to integrate it with the curriculum. A lot of the programs don't have specific standards that they are focused towards meeting, and so you have to make sure that you're still in alignment with the content standards. And then privacy concerns, some of the programs offer collaboration, which can be a fantastic thing, but it can also bring about privacy concerns and just making sure that students are safe while they're using the devices. For my lesson plan using AR, I actually am incorporating multiple apps within AR. So the first thing I would do, so students in this lesson, this would be towards the end of a unit. So students would be, this would be for a 5th or 6th grade classroom, and students will have already learned about marine life, about habitats, and we would have done an extensive research study on different marine animals. And then we would do a virtual field trip to the Florida Aquarium. flaquarium.org has a lot of virtual options. So I would have students, we would go on a virtual field trip for part of this lesson. This would probably be a multi-day lesson. And then we would use augmented classroom for students to interact with marine life. So as a reminder, augmented classroom allows students to explore animals and the world around them and explore habitats, and they can also even collaborate with other students. After the students have interacted with marine life, students would use Assembler to create a new 3D marine habitat, so using for a chosen animal. So using the research from previous lessons, they would have chosen an animal that they were researching. So for marine animals, say they chose a killer whale. So students would use Assembler to, so they would have already learned about the habitat that killer whales live in. And then they would use Assembler to create a new version of that habitat in 3D for that chosen animal. Afterwards, students would use augmented classroom again to collaborate on information learned. They would either collaborate within our classroom, or I would find students for them that I knew was safe with the privacy settings for them to communicate with about what they were learning. And then students would create a slideshow presentation either on Google Slides or on PowerPoint. And they would create a presentation about their animal and its habitat. And then the students would create a visual of this animal in the new habitat that they created in Assembler. So they would they could either use a 3D printer if our school had one. I have worked at a school that had a 3D printer. Students could draw the habitat out. They could paint it, like paint the replica of it. They could use clay and make a 3-dimensional, or they could use like cardboard and different recycled items to create a diorama or some kind of visual for the habitat that they would be showing during their presentation. Students would then use Mondly AR to practice their presentation and get feedback from the avatar. And then at the very end, students would present their presentations with the slideshow presentation and the visual presentation to the whole class.